why would you have more than 50 or 100 people? Unless it's a sequel, right? If you're Elden Ring, sure. Like, I get it. But if it's unproven, why gamble?
It's a trap of kind of trying to aim for bigger and bigger games all the time. The first thing that you lose is focus. You sacrifice kind of purity and elegance for scope.
Today I'm joined by a studio leader and creative director with over 20 years in the games industry. Known for his work on Assassin's Creed and now building a new multiplayer title with a lean team at Studio Ellipsis, where he's committed to creating over 50 jobs or developing a community-driven game from the ground up.
I split the game into 3 circles. Any idea that fits within one of these circles is a valid one. If it fits into the 3 circles, it's a fantastic idea. If it doesn't, it might be the best idea in the world, but it's not the best idea for this game.
We talked about what's actually breaking in AAA development right now, from oversized teams, losing focus and wasting resources, to how unclear direction leads to teams building different versions of the same game, and how today, smaller teams move faster by setting clear constraints, shipping early together, and involving players directly in development.
When you create a new studio and a new team, the first thing you have to do is ship something with that team. When you've been in the trenches and came out alive, it's a different kind of trust that forms. You need that for a team to be operating at its full potential. Truth of the matter is, making games is very hard. It's also our responsibility to kind of educate the fans and show them how hard it is and how iterative the process is.
From someone who has worked across both massive AAA productions and small high-trust teams, bringing a clear perspective on scale, discipline, and creative clarity, please welcome this episode's guest, head of studio at Studio Ellipsis, Alex Amancio. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Really excited for today because we got so much we can talk about and 20 plus years of experience. So I will read a small rap sheet here. So 20 plus years in the industry, and you also are committing to creating over 50 jobs with the studio that you're working in now, Ellipsis.
Mhm.
Worked from Assassin's Creed. You also have done many talks on this topic. So yeah, just really excited to chat today. I wanted to maybe open with kind of why you wanted to talk about the topic we're about to talk about and why you think it's important, and we'll get into it.
I mean, I think we're, firstly, I think we're in a real crossroads in the industry, in the sense that games are becoming bigger and bigger and more expensive. Second of all, we're also at a point in the industry where a lot of, I think that we've kind of ended the crazy growth period where the industry went from a niche thing into mainstream industry, and now we're kind of suffering the consequences of that. And then thirdly, the arrival of AI is kind of shifting things up. And so I think that because of that, it's never been a better time to kind of like have a sit down and talk about all that stuff.
100%. Love it. So you've been from AAA at Ubisoft, but also you're now with a smaller team. So maybe just share, what are you working on now? Just give us the kind of, what's your current situation?
Yeah, so we're working on a small title called Nightholme, which is a horror, a multiplayer horror hunt. It's a game that is made by a small team. It's a passion project, and it's essentially trying to kind of create something that looks more like the games that I now want to play.
Beautiful. All righty. So I want to cover kind of 3 topics just to remind people at home. So kind of what's broken in AAA, given that you were there, and kind of what's that's going to look like in the future. And then I would love to go into kind of how to build small and high performance teams. And then thirdly, kind of this community first game development. It's been an ongoing theme on our podcast, and I appreciate that you're doing that as well. So I'd love to hear from someone who's actively doing it. So let's start. So you've said this a few times, but maybe what's the most important thing that people need to remember in like what's broken in AAA development? It's a talking point that's quite common, but I'd love to hear it in your own words.
Yeah, it's a trap of kind of trying to aim for bigger and bigger games all the time. And the thing is, it is more expansive, and you do create worlds that people can kind of lose themselves in. And I think that everybody is kind of fighting for the audience's attention. So one of the solutions is, well, let's just create this world that's so big and there's so much stuff to do that, people will just like delve in and spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours in it. The problem with that is that the first thing that you lose is focus. You sacrifice kind of purity and elegance for scope. And if you look at the very, very large games, it's very difficult. I mean, there are very few exceptions, and the trade-off is a lot of money and a lot of time and huge teams. And even then, it's not a guarantee. But most games will sacrifice that kind of elegance and the purity of the experience for scope. The second thing is that because you need to get to that huge scope, it means large teams, it means a lot of money, which means risk needs to kind of be mitigated, because how many large expensive games can one single company release without putting the company itself at risk? So anything that seems a little bit unproven or a little bit crazy in terms of ideas and design, you kind of sand that off. And the third problem is that the bigger the team means also the harder it is to kind of manage that team. And so there's a lot of loss. There's a lot of waste. You start having managers to manage the managers that manage other managers. And you start having kind of sections of an entire team working on something that might have been cut 2 weeks ago and just not communicated properly. And that just, it happens to varying degrees, and some teams are very good at avoiding that stuff. Other teams less so, but it is a problem. Even the teams that are very good at doing that, trying to prevent that, when teams start getting over the, 3, 4, 500, 1,000 people, it becomes practically impossible to be perfect on that front.
So, in today's kind of era, for me, funding a studio from scratch and going to hundreds of people before launching a single game seems very brave. Like, why would you go all in on these people's not only kind of lives, right? Like, they're committing usually 2-3 years. And I've kind of been on the sideline over the last 4 years, right? I just see this. I see the layoffs. I see the going. And I'm lucky enough where I've actually spoken to a lot of people who were in some of these studios where they saw the writing on the wall 2 years before. Like, there's a few UK studios which I could name, but I won't. But like, the people in those companies knew where they were going, whereas like, this won't get released. But then it's like literally 100+ people working on something which we all kind of know it's not kind of going to get there. And for me, it just comes down to either like balance sheet economics, or the incentive structure is out of whack, or there's just like politics involved. And I think, like you said at the start, like, I think, well, at least I was listening to your DevGam talk, like, it's a time for a great opportunity, because if you don't make those mistakes, it's like there's a lot of people putting a lot of money doing that, which, could win, but probably doesn't on average. But then if you just keep it lean and don't have the politics that come with a bigger team, I just feel like it's like kind of a great time to kind of at least be working on a game. But that's the optimist hat. I don't know what you think about that.
I do agree. It's a great time to be working on games. The industry has never been, if you look at the just sheer numbers, there's never been as many gamers spending as much time playing games. So the problem isn't that people aren't playing games anymore. It's not like, if you look at the movie business and just they can't get people into theaters. We're not having that kind of problem. I think that the problem we're having is that we've, I spoke about a bit earlier about this, the fact that we're no longer in this kind of crazy explosive growth in the industry. That happens all the time. It happened every single novel industry. This happens. Games went from being a niche thing into being mainstream. That shift brought upon huge growth. And it also kind of, because you're caught in that kind of tidal wave of growth, it also means that a lot of things that shouldn't technically be a success or shouldn't be that successful tend to kind of be caught in that wave. And you're just kind of, it's almost like anything you do almost works, right? At least the stars are aligned for it to work, right? This caused an exponential growth in the number of studios and the investment. And then what happens is that you need more people. And so you start taking solid core teams that either have like shipped one, or maybe even two or three games together, and you break them up and you start promoting people, which is great. But then you need people to kind of fill in those core teams. And then you take people that are maybe at a kind of a lower tier in their experience level, nothing to do with talent, just to do with experience. And then you start forming new core teams that are maybe less proven. And you multiply this across the industry. And then there's
Dilution.
fight for talent. So other people can create other studios and take people that are unproven in a role and put them on top of another role because, well, I need to incentivize this person to leave this company. Multiply that across the industry, and you have a lot of teams that it's not that they're constituted from people that are not talented. It's just that it's unproven core teams that are now sitting on top of huge ambition and huge responsibility.
Hmm.
It's the recipe for disaster. And this is part of what happened, in my opinion.
Okay. So, given that that's history, now what? So, given that you witnessed that, right? How are you approaching kind of developing a game? And I'm thinking of two types of listeners here: the people who want to kind of maybe follow in your footsteps, start their own studio one day, but also the people who currently manage a team, whether it's in a big company or a small company. Like, what maybe pitfalls that they could avoid? So, I want to start with kind of day one, maybe, of you building the studio. Like, did you have any rules written on stone where like we're not going to do this, or like how did you approach kind of like the first few days?
I think there's 10 rules that are actually up on the
No
and
way.
not a
All right.
and these are not like I don't even know if I remember them all by heart. I should, but and these are not like generic rules. These are very specific. Stuff like accountability. It's like be accountable for what you do. It's stuff like ship with passion. It's things that you know things that people get into a habit of doing when they're in huge teams and that are part of the problem. And it's very hard not to make those mistakes when you have a huge team. You need to specialize people. People need to be over specialized. And what happens then is that, well, this one person is, very good at doing only this, and they're asked to do only this small, narrow thing. So as soon as something falls a little bit off of that, it's not my job. And it's almost like people are programmed to behave this way. But then what it causes is it just erodes the passion out of you. How many times have I seen there's this thing precariously on the side of it, like a coffee mug filled with steaming coffee on the edge of the desk, and it's there. You know that disaster is going to happen, but it's not really my job to move that, so people will just ignore it. And it's not a bad intention. It really is a symptom of and a result of having big teams and very specialized people.
Yeah, I've witnessed this. I probably can say this. Yeah, back in the day when I was doing recruitment, like EA had a similar format for Battlefields. Like there was a guy who just did the UI on this type of the website, and there was a person who just did vehicle modeling. And at the time, even that was like when we were thinking about recruiting for the roles. Like there's only so many people who only focus on that, and that was like a few years ago. Like now with AI, I'm not 100% in the trenches with AI, but even just seeing it in my business and hearing people talk about it, like I think gone are the days of the person doing one thing, unless they're a contractor for live operations and it's past the big gamble. If that makes sense, like you need that. That's repeatable. But like when you're actually making a game, you need almost by requirement a level of generalism because, like you said, like we can't even predict what new tools will come out or what's going to be possible. And a big one that I've seen that I speak to, because I have a lot of clients and a couple of them run gaming studios, and like art, 80% drop. They just need more technically savvy artists who can kind of, develop new ways of working because it's just the sheer amount of content that's required is a lot less now. And I think that's just been a massive shift. And the skill set, if you were just hiring based on what you were doing a year ago, let alone 2, 4, or 5 years ago, you're going to build the wrong team, right? I don't know.
I agree. I agree.
It's just like how big does a team need to be? Because like I'm thinking, well, it's not like being. I'm on a bender right now, but I'm just thinking. Supercell have always had the case of like, it's called Supercell. You have small teams and they do stuff, and then now they are, from what I'm hearing, growing some of the teams. There's now producers where they didn't used to have them, But we've already had examples of people making a lot with less people. Right now, why would you do anything else? In my head, like, why would you have less than? Why would you have more than 50 or 100 people? Unless it's a sequel, right? If you're Elden Ring, sure. Like, I get it. But if it's unproven, why gamble?
I agree, and one of the things is, and to kind of go back to the question that you asked
Yeah.
earlier about like small teams and what the kind of the formula is. Look, I think that another one of the mistakes that I think was made in the past, and I mean, we've been making this mistake for the past 10 years, I think, or so, is you create a new company, you get people that have done, a huge game in a certain genre. Let's say a shooter, right? They've done this huge shooter. They're experienced people. They're talented. They're proven, right? You start a new company and you give these people this core team, and you build a team around them, and you give them the mission of kind of repeating that or creating a new IP, but in that vein. You have the expertise. We want the thing that beats that. Make it. Here's a pile of money, right? Seems like a logical, good sense kind of approach. Like, you have a proven team, you have the money, you have the resources, and you have the time. The problem is that we're and you mentioned this a bit earlier about sequels. Like, we're an iterative industry. Like, you build things on top of things, and a lot of the stuff that you take for granted, we focus on the tip of the iceberg, the novelty, the shiny stuff, right? But you're resting on this huge mass under the waterline that kind of keeps it afloat. And that's the thing, that's what kills you usually when you're starting a new project. It's the thing that the stuff that isn't shiny, it isn't glorious, it's the stuff that was just magically done before, but now you have to do from scratch, and you're wasting not wasting, but you're investing all this time and money in things that have no value to selling the product, but that need to be done in order for the product to be good. Like, think about, if you look at GTA, just the traffic system. If it works, nobody talks about it. If it doesn't, it becomes a huge talking point. But that system, how many people worked on that system for how long, just for it to be at a level where it's believable and not broken? If we were to redo that game, we'd need to do that and 10,000 other things like that are absolutely not glorious, but that have to be done in order for the game that you then build on top, for it to feel good. So I think that the solution to that is you need to plan stuff in an iterative way. You need to start, when you create a new studio and a new team, the first thing you have to do is ship something with that team, because shipping together, there's a brotherhood that kind of forms around the team. It kind of, you become a unit, and it's the difference between trust in somebody and having been in the trenches with that person. Like, you can trust that person, but when you've been in the trenches and came out alive, like,
Yeah. With a
it's
deadline.
it's a different kind of trust that forms. You need that for a team to be operating at its full potential.
Did
You
you
can
have
only
that?
do that. Like, I think that we are very close to getting this. And in my career, I've had the privilege, because I'm going to contradict myself, because in the sense that there's two ways that you can achieve this. One, and the most reliable way, is ship together. The second way, it's less reliable because it requires a certain set of circumstances, but I've achieved it twice. I mean, I haven't achieved it. I just was lucky enough to be in that situation. And that's when you're the underdogs. Being the underdogs it creates that level of trust and bonding. So when we were doing, back in the day, we were making Far Cry 2. That team was one of the strongest teams that I've ever had the privilege of working with. And we were, most of us had never worked together, which on paper is very dangerous. But we
For a
were,
sequel as well.
yeah, but it was a kind of a reboot, because
Okay.
Ubisoft had kind of bought the franchise, the IP, and then our mission was, if this is going to become something that's in house, so let's rethink about it. So no, like if you remember, Far Cry 1 had monsters. It was kind of an island of Dr. Moreau type thing, and we were kind of trying to reimagine what could the next Far Cry be, and we essentially made it about the villain. Having an iconic villain, and the protagonist is just a regular person. Wrong place at the wrong time, but happens to be the right person to be there. That was kind of the concept. And but the idea is that we started that project, and we had the mission of creating a new game, kind of redefining the franchise and create a new engine at the same time. This was being done at the very same moment that Assassin's Creed 1 was being created at Ubisoft. They were getting most of the resources and all of the spotlight, and we were kind of off the radar. And this, I think, created it created a sense that we were kind of the underdogs, and that we had something that we needed to prove, that we could build something with a different philosophy. And Assassin's Creed and Far Cry have two very different philosophies. One is very scripted and very narrative driven, but very linear. And the other one is very procedural and very emergent. And so we wanted to show that if you go the emergent way, you can create something that's cool. And so that created a bond. Same thing when I then worked on Assassin's Creed. When we were making Revelations, my first mandate was to form a new team, a new Assassin's Creed team, and it was kind of scraped together from a lot of different projects, and sometimes not the most glorious of projects and not the most successful ones, but you had these gems, these amazing people that were kind of underused and kind of like that weren't
What
being
made them gems? How did you know?
talking with them, just the passionate people that just wanted to do stuff, courageous people that had like huge hearts and like ambitions that were driven by a desire to create something good rather than anything else. And so there's a bit of luck, a little bit of judgment, and a lot of luck that goes into, but we managed, like it was the producer and myself, we managed to kind of set up this team in a very short time. And then we had 10 months to ship the game. And at the same time, there was Assassin's Creed 3 that was being produced next to us, and they were again like that's the A team. They had the big project with the team and the budget, and so we had a little bit of a, we wanted to prove ourselves, and we wanted to show that we could do the impossible. And when a team believes they can do the impossible, they often do it. So that's the other kind of. So you asked me, do we have this in the current team? I think that we were lucky enough to put together a team of people that get along so well that you would never know that a year ago most of these people didn't know each other. Like they do stuff on the weekends together. They go have dinner together at night. They go to each other's birthday parties. It's like, I think that we've created that bonding and that trust.
There's been this conversation, and I've had this in my head around, remote, in person, hybrid. And I think a big part of in person is this is more likely to happen, right? Just by more time spent with the other person. And my question is like, I think everyone listening to this, and me included, is like, that sounds great. Clearly, the product will be better. People will have better careers. But as a leader, there are levers we can pull to increase the likelihood of this happening. These are people we're talking about. We can't just say, hey, you are now friends, right? But there's also an element of like, how much do we try to force this? Is this like necessary? Should everyone, like, you can't contractually say hang out on the weekend to someone, right? But there's definitely a choice you can make to encourage those type of people working together. Like, I'm thinking with the business hat on, it's like I want that for all of my teams. Like, was this a conscious choice that you're like, I want this person to join the team because they're a culture ad and I can see them doing that? Like, I'm wondering, how did you think about encouraging that environment?
Values. It's about the first thing that we were looking for were people that were in this industry because they still had that kind of sacred fire burning in their hearts. Like they want to make games, they want to create cool games. I find that when you put people together that are passionate about something and you give them the chance to work on something like that, they will naturally kind of click. Um, you can't force this, no, and nobody should try to force it. This happens or it doesn't. My point is that you need to be mindful that team chemistry is super important. Have teams that have like that absolutely hated each other, shipped good products and good games. Of course, that happens, but um, I really do believe that there's a kind of a magic that you get in the product when you have people that are literally pouring their hearts and souls into something because they want to do that and they're having fun together. Which isn't to say that there aren't hard situations or hard periods where people will sometimes be unhappy about X or Y. That happens a lot in any production. It's the difference is how you handle it and how people then kind of if everybody's heart is in the right place, those periodic periods of kind of like either misalignment or tension, they get resolved an hour later when people are sitting around the table and having a drink and just having a conversation, and everybody knows that everybody was only trying to do whatever they could to get the best possible game out there.
Yeah.
And responding to your remote point, I think that I'm a firm believer that a core team needs to be sitting in the same physical space. We have a
Every
hybrid.
day, or could that be on a monthly basis?
We have a hybrid situation, and it's 3 days a week. People have to be, and it's the same 3 days. Have to be at the office, and Mondays and Fridays are optional. Some people actually come to the office every day, and that's great. Other people prefer to have the Mondays and Fridays at home, and I myself, my Mondays are full of one-on-ones, so it's much more practical for me to do it from home because I'm not monopolizing a meeting room by myself. And
Makes
on
sense.
Fridays is a day where I do a lot of I just catch up on clerical
Yeah,
stuff
we
like
have a
email.
similar format. For me, Mondays and Fridays are like no meetings day. I have my one-on-ones on Friday, but Monday I try not to book anything. But we don't have an office yet, but we have the coffee shop office. So we have 2 coffee shops that we go to, and yeah, we're either there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or sometimes every day. But like you said, it's the core team. I can't. Well, I say I can't. Well, I could only hire from Larnaca, Cyprus, but I'm just missing out on so much talent.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you do meetings, when you book meetings for like Zoom meetings or
Mhm.
Google Meet or whatever, um, you do it for a reason. We're gonna meet to talk about X, but
Yeah.
when you're at the office, how many times did people just get up and say, "Hey, I just thought of something," and just have a spontaneous conversation? Or how many
Oh, it's
times?
amazing. Yeah, like I have that all the time. The issue I found, I say issue, not an issue, just a challenge, right? Because one of my earliest podcasts, Alexander, was with he was the head of studio of N Dreams. I'm butchering the name, but one of the N Dream studios, which was a VR studio, and they were remote from day one, but they had very strict rules of remote, like cameras on. We're going to do mirror board based meetings, and there was pretty much open office hours where you're just expected to work with your, either camera on and like the mic off, so they can kind of recreate that office feeling. I know some studios use Gather.io. I don't know if you've heard of that tool where you can like walk around and like walk into people's offices virtually. I actually had that as my first work experience during COVID. My first job was as a startup. We used Gather, and I found it cool. And I think it's possible, but like you said, it's just I don't know. It's more natural. I feel like yeah, for the people at home, it's definitely something to consider. If you can do in person, I think it's just there's benefits there, and I also think it's a bit healthy as well. Bar in mind that you can commute without spending 2 hours on the car.
Yeah, and like even there's a question of some people are introverts and they thrive better in an environment where they're kind of more isolated, and that's true. But I can speak for some observations that I've made on the team because we do like when I say that everybody gets along, it doesn't mean that they're all the same. We have a very, very different team, and some people are kind of more like super extroverted. Some people are kind of more on the quiet side, and they don't. The team looks very varied. They just have a I think similar kind of not tastes, but they just have similar
Standards and
passion.
the mission, maybe.
Yeah, mission and passion. So it did just gel well together. But like even the people that I've at the beginning, we had a couple of people say, well, we don't like the going to work too much thing. Like we will move to Lisbon, but can we just be remote, like on camera because just more introverted. I can tell you that I saw those people thrive at the office and kind of be present, not because they're forced, but because they kind of that
Mm.
it actually, from my perspective at least, it helped them. And I've seen them kind of get out of their shells and become vocal members of the team that give feedback, like more honestly than a lot of people that are more extroverted. And that, for me, seeing that is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, and I think obviously speaks to your leadership and the culture you've made because there's not every office has that environment. I have a question. It's come up in so I have bi-weekly ghostwriting interviews where I interview them podcast style, and one of my clients is a consultant, and he told me about this story, and it relates to you, and I'm curious what you think about it. So there was a situation where the team was so focused on the quality of the product that they worked like 6 months on a feature which really wasn't the most important feature. And in hindsight, when the game was kind of released, they were like, yeah, we just spent way too much time on something that didn't move the needle and didn't focus on the specific thing. And when I hear that, it clearly came from a good reason, which is kind of what you said. Like everyone's passionate, they want to make a good product. But I'm like, is too much passion a problem? Like, who does everyone have to be commercially minded? It's like, hey guys, I know you want this to be amazing, but that sprite is going to be there for like 2 seconds and probably on mobile or whatever. So I'm wondering, how do you balance the passion with like the commercial mindset? Should that be within everyone? Is that just up to us as leaders to remind people? I'm curious.
I look, I'm a firm believer that I like systems, and I
Okay.
think that systems are the best way of giving people the tools to be able to make the best decisions. When as leaders, when people rely on you for answers, I think that it's bad for a couple of reasons. And one, you become the bottleneck, and number two, it also, I think it's leveraging people's abilities to do their work, but not necessarily their intelligence. And I think that
Hmm.
when people are able to leverage their intelligence fully, is this is where you get the best results, and this is also where the people feel the most enriched and happy.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is the following: it's it's our job as leaders to explain to people what is important by giving them something that they can visualize and systemize. So I'll give you one concrete example of how I did this, for example, on Assassin's Creed. And I use that as an example because the bigger the team, the harder it becomes to manage the team, and
I can imagine,
the
right?
harder it is to align the team. So if and also people will have ideas and they'll pitch ideas, and then every time you say no, people get a little bit, and you have to, but people get exactly. So how the same way of solving that problem is also the same way of channeling their creativity and their passion. So what I did on Assassin's Creed was I essentially split the game into kind of three concentric circles that kind of like a Venn diagram that overlap. And it's a way of breaking down what the core of the game is into its simplest form. So Assassin's Creed is about social stealth. So why social stealth? Because there's a crowd. It's not just hiding in bushes. There's actually a crowd, and you can disappear into the crowd, which is novel. Stealth is not new. Social stealth is new to Assassin's Creed. The second one is parkour, which is something that's also new, because it was the kind of the game that pioneered that. You can climb anything, go anywhere. And the third one is assassinations. And those three overlap because you go from parkour to social stealth to assassination, back into parkour or social stealth. And so any idea that fits within one of these circles is a valid one. If that idea fits into two of those circles, it's a great idea. If it fits into the three circles, it's a fantastic idea. And it gives people a way of looking at the game in a way where they can then measure their feedback and their ideas through something that's predictable. If they respect that rule, odds are that when they pitch an idea to me, it's going to be good, relevant to the game, and probably accepted. Then, depending on scope and the time we have. But the rule I had is that if it touches all three, the odds of that ending up in the game are maybe 90%. If
Wow.
it touches two, maybe it's like 60%. If it touches just one, maybe it's like a 30%. If it doesn't, if it's an outlier, then it might be the best idea in the world, but it's not the best idea for this game. So it not only does it allow people to filter their own ideas and to be able to kind of judge their ideas without pitching them, but also it allows them to judge if they are relevant to the product. So to your earlier question, if they spent 6 months working on something that's not super important, well, maybe it was a great idea and it was actually fantastic, but it just wasn't for that product. And the only solution that I found, I mean, at least the best solution that I found, was just painting a very clear mental map of what the game is and what the core of the game is, what's valuable, and then let people use their judgment to kind of filter their ideas through it.
Great. So the prioritization of features and the kind of maybe time estimations, because you use the word like people should be able to have their intelligence used, and to enable that, you can make it as frictionless as possible, right, for them to make a decision. That Venn diagram is like great example. And I'm before I actually ask the second question, just to understand, that Venn diagram should always be novel, because I noticed that was novel for each of those Venn diagrams. Is that true?
I mean, not necessarily, in the sense
Okay.
that it should just whether it's novel or not will, I think, have a bearing on the longevity and maybe on the unicity of what you're doing. But whether it's novel or not, it needs to represent the game that you're making. So you need to be able to convey to the dev team why they're making something, not just the what. And a lot of mistakes that the kind of more junior teams make is that they're doing a lot of what's, but not the why is not clear.
It sounds very useful for the marketers. I can imagine like their life is a lot easier. It's like, guys, we're selling a game that does these three things. Everyone's
Mhm.
aligned, and there's only so many pivots you can do, right? We're just improving this. So I can imagine doing that as early as possible. Like, did you do that for the new game that
Yeah,
you're making?
yeah. And you were talking about marketing. You're absolutely right. Like, think about it. Assassin's Creed, the blade in the crowd. Boom. Like the core fantasy should emerge from that. So yes, we did start with that. Started with an idea of genre, and then we wanted to make a horror game, and we wanted it to be in a new universe. But what makes this universe different than other universes? So this is how kind of the process goes, like for me at least. And then I
Yeah.
start thinking about a core theme of it. For me, the theme was, uh, what if to fight monsters, the things you need to do to fight monsters kind of make you a monster as well? And what if that monster is present in all of us, and you can unleash it, but then by unleashing it, there's also you're also losing part of yourself, and you risk kind of falling into you risk becoming the very thing that you're fighting. So this idea, and then from there you go on to, well, then is it just one monster? Can you turn into many monsters? And if there are many monsters, how can we create monsters that each have a very unique core fantasy into themselves? And is there a way to kind of draw from mythology and find these kind of archetypes? And it turns out, if you look at mythology, across the globe, the same archetypes come up in most every culture, and they might be called differently, but they're all the same. And it turns out that the reason for this is that all of these creatures from myth are simply kind of mirrors of ourselves.
Mm.
A
Any
werewolf.
examples? Yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
the werewolf one is very simple. I'll give you 3 examples. The werewolf one is very simple. The werewolf is, you know, maybe we are not so far off from the monsters in the woods, and maybe the kind of the thin veneer that protects us from that is our humanity is kind of more fragile than we think, and maybe um, when you drink something or take something or just you know something happens and you lose it, and then the beast comes out, and the consequences are dire. And the werewolf myth, the moon is a metaphor for that. Um, but it's you have the werewolf or were creature myth in most every culture around the world, and it's certainly that's the central theme, is that we've built society, but we're still animals. And sometimes the society, the line between both can break.
Super cool. So like the focus doesn't necessarily come from the novel feature. It's like, sorry, not necessarily novel, like the novel aspect of the game, or the thing that makes the game unique, and then that serves as a kind of filter for everyone working on the game. But also, I can imagine it just gives you those beautiful guardrails, right? And I think maybe some of the things we talked about earlier, where things become too big, people are in siloed, like that's a nice kind of framework to prevent that, because everyone's kind of like, look, we're making this, and this is why we're making it, and this is what's cool about it. Let's improve this. And I feel like it solves a lot of problems, which I think we aren't saying. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Like if we only focus on these three things, it just gives us a lot of kind of constraint. Has everyone on your team used that sort of thing before? I'm curious, like if they've had any reaction to it. Like, this is like, what's the alternative here? Like, what could go wrong if you don't have this filtering system?
So most people in the industry, we take this for granted, but most people have built their career on sequels.
Mm.
And so you're kind of just repeating something that already exists with different story, different maybe settings sometimes, but the core of it is already there. So people take it for granted. And this is part of the problem when and the things that people underestimate when they're building a new IP. There's actually a really interesting documentary that the Last of Us team did when they did their first Last of Us that actually talks about this. I think that the quote is something, I'm probably butchering it, but it's something in the lines of, if somebody asks you to do a new IP, say no.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging thing because people don't realize that when you think about an IP, there's something visceral, and the good ones, and a feeling comes over you even before your brain has kind of had time to kind of rationalize it. What I don't know. What Star Wars feels like. What a lot of what Elden Ring feels like.
Yeah.
And that feeling has to come from a very careful and very painful definition of a core mythology. And so if this is not done right, what you end up with is 30, 50, 100, 300 people more working on 10, 30, 40, 100, 200, 400 different games, because we use words to communicate, but words mean different things to different people. And even if they're just slightly different, that multiplies. And it's almost like, when you shift something by 1 degree, it's very thin, close, but the longer that beam is, the bigger that 1 degree slice is. And that's like time, like something, a little divergence, in the short term, after a year or 2 years or 3 years of development, it becomes a
Yeah.
huge gap. And if you don't have that system in place, you will have all sorts of problems during your production, and
Did
you
you
don't know where it's coming from.
Did you catch by any chance Lex Friedman's interview of Jeff Kaplan?
I haven't.
So Jeff Kaplan, for anyone listening who doesn't know, used to work at Blizzard. He's now launching a new studio, and he on that 6-hour podcast, something ridiculous. He was talking about his Overwatch days, but he also brought up Project Titan, I believe is the name. And basically, within Blizzard, they were making like this super MMO to end all MMOs. And he was talking about exactly this. There were hundreds of people working on this game, and no one even had the art style done yet. Everyone was just making stuff. And he observed it, but then it's almost like deja vu. The people in suits were like, "Nah, don't worry." It's like, "Yeah, we'll do it later." And it was like very visceral because I was like, "That's Blizzard. Like they've made WoW," but he mentioned on the podcast that there was this feeling that WoW is not forever, and like, we need to do something new. But then the something new was just like throw everything, and it's like, yeah, we'll figure the art later. And then everyone was doing their own thing, and yeah, that's like for me like the most extreme version where hundreds of millions went into something which went nowhere, and that was probably very sad for everyone working on it, right? And it irks me that a company so large who has produced many polished games that most people would agree with can do a decision like that. But then we hear it on a podcast. We're chatting about it now. Um, but I think maybe it's just I'm trying to rationalize why it happens so often, at least in my eyes. And I'm curious what you think. Like for me, maybe it's just like a human thing to not have constraints, and it's actually hard to have constraints and then keep them, or everyone just wants to create. I wonder, like, why do you think this is happening repeatedly?
I think it's a lot of different factors, and I think that each and every one of them are slightly different.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's the pressure of, like the Blizzard example you were giving, like the pressure of, well, it's not going to last forever. We need something, so let's put our best people on it. They'll figure something out. Other times it's just people don't realize how. I think most often, and if we were to find one catch-all answer, I guess it would be people underestimate how difficult it is. In a lot of different trades, the difference, the delta between your best performance and your worst performance is going to be, I don't know, like 30, 50%, but in anything creative,
how long is a piece of
it's
string? Like it can be a
exponential.
thousand x, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, um, whenever you try to make something new, it's almost like the universe doesn't want anything new. It's almost like it makes you pay for it. But then once it's out there, it almost becomes its own thing. It's alive and it grows, and it's kind of it takes on a life of its own. Like Assassin's Creed is a good example. Like it didn't exist. It just seemed to take on a life of its own, and it grew and it grew, and it kind of once it became it just like becomes a living entity almost. But I think that
Yeah,
getting there is hard, and a lot of people want to kind of, they think that they can just throw resources at it. The truth of the matter is that it takes a bit of luck, it takes a lot of discipline, and a lot of hard work. And even the best products that there's a Netflix show that it's the I forget what the actual name is, but it's about, they go through, like they show you how these films that were iconic in the 1980s got made.
yeah, I watched that. I also don't remember the name of the show, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but the cool thing about it is that when you look at these kind of iconic films that were these huge hits that are still today considered some of the best movies ever made, and you look at how they were made and the problems that happened during the production, it gives you a little bit of a glimpse how unpredictable it is sometimes. Like even films like The Godfather, right? If you look at, there's a Paramount show that was done on the making of. I mean, it's highly kind of there's a bit of fiction in there, but the
Sure.
truth, the foundation is true, and unexpected things happen. Things seem to be going wrong. I think that the grit, discipline, and a bit of luck are the only things that I think can give you a chance of kind of breaking through. And then you have to have the discipline of scope. And the discipline of scope, I think, is the major one that people sometimes they simply bite off more than they can chew.
I think this is a good segue to one point I think we should end the podcast on. Spend a good amount of time on it. Is like community involving in development. So when I was screen sharing earlier your gameplay trailer, I'm guessing, made a conscious decision to open with Studio Ellipsis is a team of 30 passionate developers. We believe in sharing the process of building the game with the community. This is a pre-alpha build. So talk me through why you put that in there, and like what's going to be your approach here when it comes to the community.
We have a very engaged fan base in this industry, and they're very vocal, and sometimes it even veers into a bit of toxicity. And
Sometimes, really. Yes.
but I think that we're partly to blame for that, in the sense that
Interesting.
I think that we have in the past overpromised, and we have tried to show an image that is kind of
perfect.
Exactly. Everything is perfect and clean. And the truth of the matter is, making games is very hard. And a lot of the fans assume sometimes that things are done intentionally, or that people just telegraphed it in or didn't care. And I think that it's also our responsibility to kind of educate the fans and explain and open the kimono, so to speak, and show them how hard it is and how iterative the process is. So the philosophy behind what Studio Ellipsis is doing is, look, we're showing you stuff that usually you would never see. The game that we are showing you now, and the game that you will see, when it hits early access, and even the game that will be released in global launch, are different. You'll see the art improve. You'll see animation. You'll see combat improve. And this is how every game is made. We just wanted to kind of show the process so that fans can kind of get behind it and see, and maybe learn a little bit of how games are made. And honestly, if we get feedback, like, it doesn't...
Do you mind? Sorry. Can I share the comment section of this trailer? Because actually, it's quite polite. People have given like criticism as well as nice stuff, but I'm wondering if that little 10 seconds that you showed at the start, this is a nice comment section. I know it's just 41 at the moment, but like they're giving genuine feedback. Like the art style is cool. Looks cool. You know it's a fantasy game because the gas prices. That's funny.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah. And then this one I found interesting. Liking everything but the look of combat. Like this is someone who actually cares, in my opinion. Like you can tell when a comment is like super rude, but it looks like everyone is kind of like just involved, like they're just asking questions, which I've, as part of what I do, I've seen a few comment sections, and some people are just like, this is what's gonna come out, let me bash it. I was like, another Overwatch clone that just everyone's hating. I'm like, Jesus Christ, give it a time, guys. But this one, I wonder if the comment section is like this because of the openness at the start.
I don't know. And also, I actually think, and we haven't done it yet, but that we're going to engage with that. Like the team is literally going to, unless somebody is just kind of like, blurting out like, something that is non-constructive, but
you can tell from the intent.
Exactly. But that one that you mentioned about the combat, that's a great point, and you're absolutely right. And there is context behind that. And if they're interested, like, we can explain and tell them what is there, what is still missing. So for example, I can actually answer that one now. Like there's one thing, combat is closer to dancing than people realize, because there's a rhythm to it. There is a rhythm to combat, and really good combat games nail that down. Like the Souls games are fantastic for this. That dodge, parry, hit, and there's timing to that. But that is done through a lot of tweaking, and like somebody spending time there and to the microsecond tweaking that and making sure that the rhythm, we haven't done that yet, because once the first layer is you build, you put everything in, and then you start tweaking that. So a lot of our combat is still not where we want it to be for a lot of reasons, but mainly because of that part. So that is a very constructive point, and it deserves to be answered. And one of the things that I'd like to do with the fan base by exposing the game as it is now is, people will have good points of view, and sometimes they might see something that we don't. And so it's kind of like we're kind of crowdsourcing in a way. Before we do a beta, we're crowdsourcing, kind of analyzing the game.
There's I'm unfortunately blanking on the name, but someone, it was an indie developer, but basically they have like ridiculously good positive scores on their Steam page.
Mhm.
And I remember someone asked them, like, how did you do it? And they said, oh, it's very simple. We reply to every single person who left a non 5-star review, um, with the questions like, with a detailed reason why, or with the fix. So, hey, bro, we just actually noticed that and we just fixed it. If you want to like change your review, and a lot of people changed their review. They just had like a inbox zero mentality to Steam reviews during beta. Like, so they treated it like almost like tickets. And there was some people in the Steam review page. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name, for anyone listening. I'm sorry, but they were like really proactive. Like, these are customers, right? Like, let me just tell them why we fixed so and so. Or some people just said they gave a reason of why it's the case, like a bit more context, and people still changed their review. I found that very interesting, like treating your game not as, the disc is on the shelf, goodbye. But it's like, no,
Mhm.
you like, these are live living products, right?
Well, that's what community is, right? These are not disk products anymore. These are living things that should evolve with patches and with the community. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, very cool. When is this coming out, bro? Can I play it soon? I know there's no
We'll
release date. Next year,
we'll
the
announce
year
a
after.
little bit later this year. But what I can tell you is that there will be an alpha this summer, alpha
Exciting.
a closed beta this summer.
Very cool. Nice. How does it feel? Does this feel exciting? Is this you nervous?
Always nervous, but in a good way. I love reading people's reactions, and I love seeing the feedback in real time. Uh, you know, my biggest wish for this is for us to kind of find a community of people that really kind of we're creating something that is that thing that they were waiting for, and like
Hmm.
most energy I get from this is from that part.
How are you doing that practically, if you don't mind me asking? Like, do you have a Discord? Is it a different? Where do you have the community? Are you putting resources to increase the community, or is it purely organic? Like, how do you think about building the community?
Uh, it's Discord, and I do believe that a good community, the good foundation, like are true believers, it has to be organic. It has to be people that love the game, that want to play the game, that love this fantasy, and then these are the people that are going to build the game with us. They're going to give us feedback, and we're putting a lot of resources into it, but in the sense that we're trying to answer everything. We're posting stuff that exposes the mythology a little bit more, the characters, the background, the
Hmm.
systems of the game. We're really trying to and even provide the community with clips of the team talking about the various things that they're working on. That's it. When a lot of people say the words community first, but I think that community first is more than just a couple of actions. It's a complete philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, on the marketing podcasts, when they've come up, and we've also had some podcasts with like VC scouts. They've all
Mhm.
said, like, if it's a new IP, the only track record you have is the size of your wish list, or even better, the
Mm.
level of engagement you're getting either online or in your community, right? So, like,
Yeah.
it's almost like, what else can you do to validate your game unless it's a sequel? And I'm like, well, you can't, right? Like, you just need to have these people. Ah, fantastic. Can I be cheeky? You can just tell me no if you can't answer these questions. But are you doing a premium plus a then kind of DLC model? Is this going to be free to play because it's online, right? You need a certain amount of players. You don't have to share if you don't want to.
No, I can. No. This is being designed as a premium game, and part of what we're going to do is, like for example, if we have a new setting, that stuff, those updates are going to be free because you don't want to
Okay.
kind of start charging for that and then splitting the audience. And, oh, I can't really play with you because I don't have this map and you have it. So we do want to this to grow, but it is being built as a premium game. There will be things that I think people can buy to expand, but we will still be giving people like throughout
Nice.
like a lot of free stuff. So you're getting a premium game,
So you're
and then you're
planning with
getting
that in mind already. You're going to have 12-month content plan type situation, or at least some content after release, right?
yeah, and we're gonna by the time we reach beta, we'll have kind of a calendar, and people will part of sharing with the
Beautiful.
community. Will know exactly what we're gonna be delivering and when.
Yeah, I found it very perplexing when like a game like High Guard comes out, or just certain games. It's like there's no content plan. So if they don't like launch day till your next update, they've made their opinion. Like they can't even give it a chance till like the next drop or the next patch. So I think proactively saying, "Hey, we're going to be
Mm,
giving more stuff," especially in today's world. Maybe this has come up on a lot of podcasts. Like we have different gamers. We have older gamers, gamers who, at least in my head, like they will play something, and if they have to play it again and again, there's a lot of options. So like unless something changes throughout the year,
mhm.
it's hard in my opinion, like to keep someone's attention. Oh, question for you. I ask this to every game dev. Are you thinking of how streamable this game is and appealing to the streaming audience? I'm guessing with horror, it's like even better, right? So are you like you want the Among Us crew to kind of do this with your game? And like, are you consciously thinking about that during development?
Yes, in the sense that it is a horror game, and I believe in. It's also a non-narrative game. It's set in a very a world that has a very deep lore, but it's
Yeah,
not a narrative game. And so the stories that I would like for people to tell are their own stories. So by creating a game that has a certain element of emergence, so it let me put it this way. There's games that are about the destination. Like you go to a mission, and then when you get to the mission, you have a cinematic, you have the scripted mission, and then end cinematic, and then you just go around the world to your next mission. And there's games that are about the journey. It's the cool stuff is the stuff that happens to you on the way to the mission, the
yeah,
unexpected stuff, because the world has emergence. There's systems in it that create unexpected situations. We are trying to build that. And how does that connect to your question about streaming? Is the best streaming is about the unexpected stuff.
yeah. Those
If
random
you're
moments.
walking, exactly, there you go. So that's it, we're thinking about streaming in that sense.
Yeah, very cool. So you're making as many um, opportunities for clippable moments, right?
Yes.
And I had a section when I was writing, we were writing content for one of our clients, marketing client, and basically
Mm,
Arc Raiders was one of the games they were analyzing. And I just like, why is everyone talking about Arc Raiders? So I just watched it. I just Googled it for YouTube shorts, like the worst habit I could do. And I'm watching these YouTube shorts of Arc Raiders. My entire life was Arc Raiders on YouTube for a good week. I started binge watching like the Burnt Peanut, I believe it's called. But like Arc Raiders is such a, for me, good example of this done um, because like there's nearby voice. Is there nearby voice on this? Are you thinking about that?
mm-hmm. Yep.
There is.
And
Oh,
you want it to
mate.
be, yeah, yeah, and also like the proximity volume. So you're in a horror setting, right? If
Oh,
you don't
and
want
it's
to be
horror, so it's like actually practical, right? Like you could.
exactly
Mm,
keep your voice down, exactly.
very cool. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And wait a minute, but you could always mute, right?
Yes, of course.
But do you have to communicate with your teammates with voice only, and then people could hear you?
There can be emotes, but if you want to use the voice chat, then like just watch the volume of your voice and do it in
I
a
like that. Very cool. So
yeah,
like obviously like the enemy could hear you, right? Very
yeah.
cool. Nice, exciting. Awesome. Um, Alexander, I have a I don't know why I'm very self judgmental today, but it's not. I was going to say a cringe question. It's not a cringe question. I asked this to everyone. So, um, someone who's listened to this podcast all the way through is a special
Mhm.
type of listener, right? So they've clearly care about game development and interesting for that person, right? The person who's in the games industry and is a professional. Like, what is the one thing you would love for them to leave this podcast with? If they had to leave with one thing, help their career and help them grow.
I would say three things. Number one, their passion. Keep the passion alive. Like we make games for a living. It's hard, but we're making games for a living. That's amazing. Never forget that. Number two, is when you're embarking on a new project, on a new IP, um, know that grit and faith are your best allies and the things that will keep you motivated through the long and arduous journey. And number three is the people that you're going to meet in your career are probably going to be the best people that you're ever going to meet. Find your team, find your people, and then build that trust with them. And it is the surest secret for success that you'll ever have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Great. I'm guessing people can wishlist this on Steam. Is that what you want them to do?
I would love for them to wishlist on Steam and also join the Discord and be part of the community.
Yeah, get involved. You tell them you came from this podcast. That way they know you're an interested and very diligent future Nightholme community member. Great. Alexander, really enjoyed today's podcast. Thank you so much for spending the time, sharing the stories. I really had a good time.
Thank you, Harry. It was great.
Alrighty. Goodbye, everyone. If you enjoyed this, send it to a friend and maybe subscribe. Gone through the entire thing. Consider it. It is below the like button. Alrighty. Bye, everyone.